So, around 4 months ago, I was looking at Wikipedia and I stumbled upon this goofy looking compound that is supposedly a very pink dye. It's often called pararosaniline and has many uses, for example as a test for sulfur dioxide or aldehyde. So as a chemist, I immediately searched if I could possibly make it myself, because it looks so sick. And most importantly, it's not fucking yellow. But don't worry, we'll still have to do some yellow chem to get to the pink color. That's because some of the precursors are kind of, let's say, cursed, yeah. So anyway, let's get started with the synthesis. The first reagent we need to make is paranitrotoluene. It's usually made by simply nitrating some toluene. To do so, I first measure 50 ml of concentrated 98% sulfuric acid in a small beaker. And this stuff is extremely corrosive, that's why I'm wearing gloves. I put it aside, and now we're gonna measure 37.5 ml of 68% nitric acid, which is the azote with water. As you can see, the acid lets off some very spooky fumes, so I decided to go in the fume hood. We're now going to mix both of the acids, and the mixture will heat up a lot, so after mixing, I leave it to cool down for a few minutes. And now we're gonna very slowly add the nitric acid. As you can see, it makes a lot of fumes. Then I took my toluene bottle and measured 40 ml of it in the beaker. I pour it directly on the run flask and close the stopper. Off camera, I transfer the acid mixture to the addition funnel, and now we're gonna start the additions. I also added some ice to the ice bath and started stirring. While the reaction takes place, let's take a quick look at the reaction mechanism. First, the sulfuric acid is stronger than nitric acid, so it partially forms this intermediate NO2+ that is called the nitrogen ion. Then, this nitrogen ion attacks the toluene aromatic ring and does an electrophilic substitution. The NO2 can end up with 3 positions, either ortho, meta, or para. The para is the one we want, so we'll still have to do some work to separate it later. As I waited for a few hours, the solution slowly turned more red and then back to its yellow creamy color after 3 hours. I removed the separation funnel and put it on the stand over the beaker. I poured the reaction content inside of it and you can start to see 2 distinct layers. One is the nitrotoluene isomers and the other is the acid mixture. To distinguish them, I first tried to test them with pH, but that didn't really work. So what I did is I took a small sample from each of the layers and added water to both. The left acid layer was soluble with the water, and the top layer, which is the nitrotoluene isomers on the right, was insoluble. I then washed the nitrotoluenes with the solution of sodium carbonate to get rid of excess acid and then decanted it off camera. I added some anhydrous calcium chloride pellets to get rid of the moisture and then decanted the now clear solution into another beaker. To separate the para isomer, I will cool the mixture down to -8 degrees Celsius to crystallize it in my fridge. As you can see, the solution is now cold enough and we can filter it with my shitty vacuum setup. And let's use this thing. And basically now we can just scoop everything, so this is mostly the para isomer as I said. And we can put all of it inside a tube like this, which I pre-weighted to 13 grams, so we're gonna weight this bastard. Alright, so in the end we're left with 19 grams, but the bottle in itself weighs 13 grams. So basically it means that we have 6 grams of the meta and para nitrotoluene. But it's mostly the para because the meta is very unfavored. Okay, now onto the second step. This reaction is a little bit goofy because it reduces the nitro group into an amine, but it oxidizes the methyl group into an aldehyde, so yeah, it's kinda sus. But everything makes sense when you realize that it uses sulfur as a reagent. But yeah, anyway, for this cursed yellow chem reaction, we actually need a reagent I don't have yet, sodium sulfide. So we're gonna make it before anything. If you used sulfur before though, you know that reacting elemental sulfur with a hot solution of sodium hydroxide yields some impure sodium sulfide that is contaminated with polysulfide and other stuff. But since I don't know how sensitive the reaction is, I would prefer making pure sodium sulfide so that it doesn't mess things up. What the hell? To make it, I'm first gonna make the impure sodium sulfide, then react it with an acid to make some hydrogen sulfide gas, which will react with the solution of sodium hydroxide to make some much better quality sodium sulfide in solution. First, I make the sodium hydroxide solution by adding approximately 40 ml of water to 20 grams of solid sodium hydroxide. As you probably know, hydrogen sulfide gas is very toxic, so to be safe I have this strap at the end of the tubing to catch any unreacted hydrogen sulfide. It's a bleach or hydrogen peroxide can be used to oxidize the hydrogen sulfide, but here I use my 10% bleach solution. Then I pour in a random amount of my polysulfide solution in the round flask. As you can see, it's very red, whereas a better sodium sulfide solution should only be slightly yellowish. Then I closed the stopper and added my stirring plate to help the dissolution of hydrogen sulfide in the sodium hydroxide. As you can see, the reaction looks really cool because it precipitates some elemental sulfur in those sort of clouds, in the red solution. Very unique in my opinion. Anyway, now that we have our sodium sulfide solution, we can start making the para-aminobenzaldehyde. We first need to make an aqueous solution. To do so, I measured 84 grams of water on the scale, then we need 14 ml of the sodium sulfide solution we made earlier. To measure it properly, I will use this piece of glassware because it has some precise graduation. I first measured 10 ml and then the other 4 ml. Then we need approximately 2 grams of sulfur powder. I used this very pure sulfur from Onyx Met, but it probably doesn't matter too much, and you can probably use the precipitated sulfur from the polysulfide solution from earlier. I measured it in the cap to not overshoot in the beaker. Alright, so here we should have 2 grams according to the scale. Yes, it's not going to dissolve right now, but the final ingredients. And for the final reagent of the water solution, we need approximately 4 grams of solid sodium hydroxide pellets. Then we need to heat and stir the solution for 15 to 20 minutes. And if you've been listening so far, you will recognize that we added sulfur and sodium hydroxide in that solution. This means the solution uses polysulfides and all of the other stuff to work. So my hypothesis is that it could maybe also work without the pure sodium sulfide and with more impure polysulfide crap. But I didn't test that yet, so I'll guess we never know. The second solution we need is simpler to make because we only need 2 chemicals. I first measured 42 ml of 95% ethanol in this tiny beaker. And then we add in the whole 7 grams of paranitrotoluene we made. There was still some unmelted paranitrotoluene, so I just mixed everything together to dissolve it.
Yeah, it is not it, so what I'm going to do is deal with it. So, let's start with like that.
So this is the aqueous solution of sodium sulfide, sodium hydroxide and sulfur. As you can see, there's a lot of sulfur deposits. And after reacting for 10 minutes on heat, well, the polysulfide are starting to being generated from the reaction between the sulfur and the sodium hydroxide. Then I mounted this reflex setup. Added in the alcohol solution that contains the toluene, turned on the heat, added the stopper and started stirring. I also connected the tubes and started the water pump. Now we can finally add the water solution, and you can see the mixture turned a very dark brown color. I close the stopper and leave it refluxing for 3 hours. I first wanted to talk about the mechanism, so I searched a bit to find this. It's a proposed mechanism and it's a little bit too complex, so I'll let you pause if you want to analyze it, but I'm gonna skip it because it's too long for my liking. I come back 3 hours later and I see the solution has turned even more black. I let it cool down and then I changed the setup to a distillation setup because we will now carry a steam distillation. As you can see, there is an additional funnel to add water when needed. But this steam distillation is a little different from usual because we are not trying to distill the product, but rather impurities and side products such as pararosaniline or unreacted reagents like the paranitrotoluene and also the ethanol we used. According to the paper I'm following, we should collect between approximately 200 and 300 milliliters of distillate. After almost 2 hours of distillation, I collected a good amount of distillate and we can stop heating. I dismantled the apparatus and poured the contents of the flask into a beaker.
Good. You just have to pour everything into a beaker.
I adjusted the total volume to 80 milliliters as in the paper and then filtered the solution because it had this weird brown crap at the bottom. I don't know what is it, but I know it's not supposed to be here. Just by standing here, you can see the yellow-orangey precipitate starting to form, but to precipitate it more, I put it in my freezer for some time. As you can see, there is now a lot more precipitation, so we can filter it again using my shitty vacuum setup. As you can see, the product is a lot more yellow when out of the solution. The filtrate still contains para-aminobenzaldehyde, so I'll filter it again. I put all of the filtered product on this reverse cup and we will now dry it better over some potassium hydroxide as mentioned on the procedure. As you may know, I don't have a proper vacuum desiccator, so instead I'm gonna put everything in this random plastic box and it will still probably work. When the product is finally somewhat dry, I weight it in this tiny cap on the scale and the final weight comes out to about a gram. Sadly, I cannot be more precise due to my scale, but I've ordered a new one that is more precise. Okay, now let's finally do the third and final step, the conversion of para-aminobenzaldehyde to pararosaniline. There is almost no information on the internet on the procedure for this reaction, so I decided to try things myself. According to Wikipedia, it can be made by the condensation of aniline and para-aminobenzaldehyde, which is cool, but it doesn't tell me anything, like, could you at least tell me the solvent, the temperature, maybe the time? So I first took a little bit of the para-aminobenzaldehyde and put it into this test tube. And then added a random amount of aniline. I don't see anything happening other than the solid being partially dissolved, so I decided to light on my blowtorch and heat the test tube a little bit. But nothing really happened even when the aniline solution was boiling, so I tried adding some hydrochloric acid because it's supposed to help, but it didn't work either. I had to think for a while before having another idea. As you can see, I have this flat bottom test tube and I'm gonna use it to mount a reflux for the reaction. I first scoop some para-aminobenzaldehyde into it and then add a random amount of aniline. I also added a touch of concentrated sulfuric acid to help the reaction. I put the test tube on the hot plate and stabilized it with a clamp. Also, I don't have an adapter for my condenser, but it's more or less the same size as the tube, so I will just use some tape to keep everything stable. I came back after 20 minutes of heating and the solution has already turned a little bit more red, so I think this is a good sign that the reaction is working. Now you can clearly see the pink coloration when I shine some light through the solution. I think it looks really cool. I also tried to find the mechanism online and in my university database, but I didn't manage to, so I guess no mechanism this time. After cooling, I stopped the test tube and we now have a solution of beautiful pink pararosaniline in aniline. The last thing I need to do though is to prove what I made is really pararosaniline, or at least I'm gonna try. To do so, I will use the spectroscope I made in another video. I first prepared a solution of pararosaniline by diluting some of the aniline solution in some ethanol. My phone didn't catch the moment of the dilution because the storage was full, but anyway, here is the diluted solution. Also, just to put in perspective how good of a dye pararosaniline is, in the diluted solution, I put only one single drop of the solution we made, so there is only a tiny amount of dye, and yet the color is still clearly visible, which is really surprising. Since I don't have a continuous spectrum light, I will use a shitty LED light, but it should be enough to detect the green absorption of pararosaniline at approximately 540 nanometers. But then I just saw that the spectrometer wasn't calibrated, so I took a break to calibrate it and came back later. Now, when I remove the pararosaniline solution, you can clearly see that the green hole disappears, which means the dye solution absorbs it. On the laptop, I read approximately 570 nanometers, but considering the gap is like 100 nanometers wide, it's well within the error margin. So yeah, here you have it, pararosaniline dye made from scrap. If you have some video ideas you would like me to do, be sure to tell me in the comments. Thanks for watching and see you all next time.